Welcome to Money 911, the show where we protect your health, wealth, and peace of mind. Today's episode is a wake-up call, wrapped in hope. Joining us is Dr. Philip Ovadia, a top heart surgeon who stepped out of the operating room to teach us how to stay off his table. After performing thousands of life-saving surgeries, he realized the truth. Most heart diseases are preventable. He took back his own health, lost over 100 pounds, and now empowers others to take control of theirs without relying on pills or procedures. Because let's face it, what good is wealth if you're not here to enjoy it? This is more than a conversation. It's your invitation to heal, lead, and live fully. Starting now. All right. It's a pleasure to have you here, Dr. Philip, right?
Yes, great to be here with you, Kris, and excited to chat with your audience today.
Well, you have some really great information. That's why I have you on here, because we talk about healthy money, but what good is that if we don't even have our own health, right? Health is wealth.
Definitely so. You know, one of my favorite sayings is that the healthy person has 1,000 wishes, but the unhealthy one has just one. And I think, as you know, many in your audience are working towards building wealth. If you build wealth but you ignore your health, you're really not going to be happy with that outcome because you're never going to be able to enjoy that wealth that you spent all the time building.
Exactly. And there's an illusion there where we just think, it's not going to happen to me. And I know I've had that within my own family because we were healthy, never got sick, but things come out of nowhere. So it's really important for people to be prepared and know, like, what is a warning sign of poor heart health that most people overlook, especially high achievers and entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So, you know, the unfortunate reality about heart disease is that there may not be warning signs until it's too late. You know, we need to talk about some sobering statistics around heart disease. It is the number one killer here in the United States and worldwide. And someone has a heart attack every 33 seconds in this country.
Right.
And the problem is that somewhere between 20 and 30% of heart attacks, first time heart attacks, are fatal. And so there may not be any warning. And that's why it is so important to be actively surveilling your health. You know, I use the analogy oftentimes when I'm talking to people in the business world. If the first time you heard from your accountant was when you went broke and the checks started bouncing, none of us would accept that, and none of us would be very happy about that. And if the only thing, if you went to your accountant yearly for your sort of check-in, right, and the only thing they told you was, well, the checks haven't bounced yet, things are good. Again, none of us would accept that. We have all of these metrics, these KPIs that we look at for our wealth. And it's important that people start to take that same approach for your health and, start to think about some important KPIs for your health. And the unfortunate thing is your doctor may not be focused on those things. As doctors, we're trained really to take care of sick people. We're not trained to keep people from getting sick. And what I've learned in my career, 20 plus years as a heart surgeon, is it's much better to keep people from getting sick, to keep people off my operating table, than for me to try and, fix the problems once they develop.
Right. And that your book title is so perfect, Stay Off My Operating Table. That you never hear doctors say that, right? That's brilliant. So You've said before the traditional healthcare system's broken, obviously. And if you could wave a magic wand, what's one part of it that you would want to fix and why?
Yeah, so it really, like I said, comes down to being focused on prevention. And if there's one sort of ignored health indicator that I could really get, physicians and patients and everyone involved to focus more on, it would be what we call metabolic health. And metabolic health is really the underpinning for most of the chronic disease that we face in society. So it's not only about heart disease, but it also is a factor in the development of cancer, in the development of Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, chronic kidney disease. You can go down the list of the common causes of death. And here in the US, the top 10 causes of death, 9 out of the 10 of them are associated with poor metabolic health. And yet, if I stop, 100 people on the street and ask them, did your doctor ever talk to you about metabolic health? I would venture to guess that, at least 90 of them would say, no, I've never heard that term.
Right. Exactly. So how can they rewrite this, their health story, struggling? What is that? What's the metabolic health and what is it that they can do?
Yeah, so it really starts with understanding the 5 basic measures of metabolic health. And these are outlined in my book. And you can go right to the front page of my website, ifixhearts.com, and just take the quiz button. And that's going to be a free quiz that's going to take you through these markers. So you don't have to scramble to find something to write them down. But the 5 basic measures, the first 2, you don't need your doctor for. You can take care of them basically at home. Number 1 is your waist circumference, right? So all you need is the tape measure. Get that tape measure out, measure just above the level of your belly button. Do it first thing in the morning before you eat. And if you're a man, your goal is for that to be less than 40 inches. If you're a woman, you want it to be less than 35 inches. The next measurement of metabolic health is your blood pressure. And again, you can check this at home. You can check it just about every grocery store and pharmacy these days has the little kiosk to check it. And of course, when you go to the doctor, they're going to check this. And your goal is for your blood pressure to be less than 130/85. So top number less than 130, bottom number less than 85. And importantly, that should be without the use of medications. If you've already been told that you have high blood pressure and you've been put on medication for it, it's an indicator that you have a metabolic health problem. The final 3 measures are basic blood work. And, most doctors are going to check these numbers as part of your sort of annual exam. There are lots of websites now that people here in the US can go and order their own blood work. So you don't even necessarily need to wait for your doctor to do this for you. But you want to know your fasting blood glucose level, the amount of sugar that's in your bloodstream when you haven't eaten for about 10 to 12 hours. And you want that to be less than 100. Milligrams per deciliter is the units we use. Sometimes doctors will check what's called a hemoglobin A1C. This kind of gives you an average blood sugar over a 3-month period. And if you're looking at that measurement, you want it to be less than 5.7. Now, again, this should be without the use of medications. If you've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, or you've been started on medicine to lower your blood sugar, it's another indicator that you have a metabolic health problem. And finally, the all-important cholesterol panel, right? And most doctors, this is what they spend a lot of their time focusing on during that quick visit you're going to have with them. But the problem is they're looking at one number on that test, what's called the LDL cholesterol, or they'll call it the bad cholesterol. And we want to look at different numbers from that test. There are 2 other numbers on that test that are important for metabolic health. One is the HDL cholesterol. That's the one that they're going to call the good cholesterol. And they call it that because we do actually want this number to be higher. And specifically, if you're a man, you want it to be over 40 milligrams per deciliter. If you're a woman, you want it to be over 50 milligrams per deciliter. Women naturally tend to have higher HDL levels. And then we're going to look at the triglyceride level, which is also going to be on that, cholesterol panel or that lipid panel. And this one we do want lower. We want it to be less than 100 milligrams per deciliter. So those 5 measurements, waist circumference, blood pressure, fasting blood glucose, HDL cholesterol, and triglycerides, they tell you whether or not you're metabolically healthy. And the scary statistic is this. Of the adults here in the United States, 88%, so nearly 9 out of 10 adults in the United States are not metabolically healthy. At least one of those numbers is abnormal for them. It's only about 10% of adults that have all 5 measurements where they should be.
10%. Yikes.
Yeah, pretty scary stuff.
Yeah.
We've really reached a point in our society that it's essentially normal to be unhealthy.
Yeah, exactly. You were once on the other side of this, overweight, right? Burned out. Yep. What was the first mindset shift that moved you from survival to healing?
Yeah, the first real mindset shift was that why I wanted to be healthy, right? We all say, of course, we want to be healthy, right? That's sort of obvious. But if you really don't have a good why, doing the things that it takes to become healthy, if you're already unhealthy, which, like I just said, is the case for many of us and was certainly the case for me, it's not always easy to do that. The environment around us these days, the food, the habits that we have, there's so much that's working against our good health. And like I said, the evidence is that most of us become unhealthy. So you really have to start to do different things and put effort into being healthy. And in order to give yourself the motivation and the mindset that's going to allow you to do those habits and continue those habits, you have to have a good reason why you want to be healthy. For me, it was, wanting to see my children, my young children at the time, grow up, wanting to be there for my wife and wanting to enjoy this life that I had, worked very hard to build. Right? Not easy to become a heart surgeon. And I wanted to be able to enjoy this. And quite frankly, I was headed for a place where I wasn't going to be able to enjoy it. I was morbidly obese. I was pre-diabetic. And I knew that I was going to end up on my own operating table, so to speak.
Right. Oh, well, that's a good wake-up call for but most busy leaders just say, I don't have time. So how do you respond to that from a medical and a human perspective?
Yeah, what I really, have that honest conversation, you're going to have a lot less time if you're sick, right? If you end up on my operating table, if you end up with a heart attack and you're not one of the, people who doesn't even survive it, but even if you do survive it, right?
Yeah.
You're now going to spend your time dealing with that illness. And that's going to be time that you're not going to have to building your business and enjoying your family life and all the other things we want to do. So, you can spend a little bit of time and effort now to preventatively deal with your health, or you can spend a lot of time, effort, and money to try and reclaim your health when you're already sick. And, again, I've seen both sides, right? I see the people who end up on my operating table and I'm honest with them. I tell them that no matter how good I might be as a heart surgeon, you're never as good after the operation as you would have been if you didn't need the operation in the first place.
Exactly. Really. And then you always talk about lifestyle, more important than prescription. So maybe just give us like simple three changes someone can make and take today to shift the future.
Yeah. So, first and foremost is the food that we are eating. And, the high level rule that I have people pay attention to is you need to eat whole, real food, right? You
Right.
eat the things that grow in the ground and
Yep.
you eat the things that eat the things that grow in the ground, right? Our animals and our plants, as close to you can get them, as they exist in nature. The problem is today, you walk into the supermarket and 95% of what's called food, what's in the supermarket there, is not real food. It's not the food that our grandparents, great grandparents, and ancestors evolved eating. This is, what we call highly processed or ultra processed food that has very little relation to that. And our bodies don't know how to handle that. And that's what's really driving the metabolic health problem. Too much processed food, highly refined and processed carbohydrates like sugar, bread,
Right.
chips, pasta, cake, all of this stuff, and not enough of the whole real food that we evolved eating, meat and vegetables. So, changing the way you eat is going to be the most powerful thing when it comes to your metabolic health. And, the good news as a heart surgeon, people might see the cover of my book, over my shoulder there, right? Red meat is not the problem, never was the problem. And I'm a heart surgeon that tells people you can eat all of the meat you want. You got to cut out the processed junk food. And I think that's a pretty good trade off in the end. The number two thing that I would tell people to pay attention to is their sleep. Sleep is when our body heals and recovers. And if you're not getting enough of it and it's not good quality sleep, you're going to, again, develop a lot of problems related to that. And the third thing I tell people to focus on is your activity. You notice, many people were probably expecting me to say exercise. It's
Right.
not about exercise. It's not about, going to the gym and getting on the treadmill. It's just being active throughout your day.
Right.
Sitting around is as dangerous to our health. Some studies have shown as smoking is. So, you want to get some activity throughout your day. And I encourage people to, spread that throughout your day. Simple things like, I'm standing up and I have a standing desk right now as we're
Right.
recording this and as I've been working all day. And, when I get breaks, you go and you take a short 10-minute walk can be incredibly powerful. So you don't have to necessarily find an hour or two to go spend in the gym each day. You just try and get more activity throughout your day.
Right. And then if you're just, do you recommend when people are sitting just to get up every half an hour and just walk, short distances too?
Yeah, definitely so. And after you eat, taking a 10-minute, kind of moderate intensity walk can have amazing effects on helping your body to process, that food that you ate.
Okay, that's good. So, if somebody's listening right now and they're sitting there with fear in their heart that maybe they've lost someone to disease or they're scared about their own health, what are you going to say to them?
Yeah, what I'm going to say to them is, take control of your health, take charge of your health, and do it today. And like I said, it doesn't have to be complicated. You know, go and take that quiz on my website. Figure out where you stand, right, on those measurements. And if you don't know the measurements, right, that's the first step in the process. Put a little effort in, get those measurements done so you can figure out if you're metabolically healthy or not. And if you're not, start to make those changes in how you eat, how you sleep, what kind of activities you do, so that you can now improve your metabolic health. And that is going to help you to avoid things like heart disease, cancer, and the other chronic diseases that are plaguing our society.
One truth about heart disease that the public really doesn't know or barely hears of, what would that be?
Yeah, it's not about cholesterol. That's the big truth, really the big mistruth around heart disease. It's not about your cholesterol. Uh, Inflammation, insulin resistance, which is kind of a biochemical process that explains metabolic health. These are the things that lead to heart disease. Cholesterol comes in late in the process and plays a role, but the primary way of stopping heart disease is not lowering cholesterol. And unfortunately, again, we have the evidence for this. We've been focused on lowering cholesterol first by dietary changes and then by pharmaceuticals, for the past 50 years. And I shared the statistics around heart disease at the beginning. It's not going away. It's not getting better. Right. Managing your cholesterol level should not be the primary focus when it comes to heart disease.
Right. Interesting and brilliant. So, in your vision of a true legacy, how does health, faith, and purpose come together in someone's life?
Yeah, it really, I don't think that we can lead a truly meaningful, purposeful, and productive life if we're not paying attention to our own health at first, and then hopefully spreading that to the people around us. The statistics that I shared about 90% of us being unhealthy, right? The only way we're going to change that is as a community, right? Working together, and you do it for yourself first, and then you talk about it like I do to, anyone that will listen essentially, but your friends, your family, and, you just hope to have that influence, and then it starts to spread out. And that's how we're going to change those scary statistics.
When I first met you at Laurel Langemeyer's event, the big table, you had a test that people could take. Are you still providing that?
Yeah. So, like I said, it's right on the front page of the website, okay. ifixhearts.com, and then just hit the take the quiz button. And that's going to march you through those 5 metabolic health parameters. And then for the listeners of this show, we have extra bonus. If you go to ifixhearts.com/911, you're going to get an electronic copy of the book. And some other resources that are going to help you start to improve your metabolic health.
Very cool. So, and that's fabulous. You've really given a pathway to everybody there and how to connect with you, what to do. Anything that I might have missed?
The one other thing that I always advocate for, like I said, heart disease, sometimes the first warning is when you have a heart attack. And I don't want that to continue to be true. Yeah. So one other test that I think is important for people to know about, that unfortunately many doctors don't know about, but you can ask your doctor about this test, is called a coronary artery calcium scan, a CAC scan. And what that scan does, it's a simple, non-invasive, it's a CAT scan, so it's an imaging test. It takes about 5 minutes. They don't have to put an IV in you. And in most locations, it's going to cost you under $100. And it will show you heart disease at its early stages. It's kind of like a mammogram for the heart, right? Mm-hmm. We want to pick up on this before it becomes a major problem. So ask your doctor. I tell, men by the time they're 40, women by the time they're 50, you should get a CAC scan and know whether or not, know how much heart disease you might have and what your risk is.
Fabulous. You just gave us all the map here, how to take care of this. I'm going to call my doctor right now. Really
awesome.
Appreciate you. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on here. We'll look forward to having you back because I'm sure you've got a lot of things that you'll be able to share more of, right?
Definitely so. I'd be happy to come back and talk about some other aspects of all of this.
Okay. Tell everybody again your website.
Yep, ifixhearts.com. You can get all the information about how, me and my team work with people and learn all about your metabolic health and take back control of your health.
Awesome. Doctor, it's been fun talking to you today, and And bless your journey and look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you, Kris.
Okay. What an inspiring journey. Doctor reminded us of something profound. Your greatest asset isn't your money, it's your health, because you can't enjoy wealth if you don't protect the body carrying you there. So let today be a turning point. Eat better, breathe deeper, live longer. And remember, the future you're building needs you alive and thriving. If this conversation sparks something in your heart, grab a copy of Dr. Ovadia's best-selling book, Stay Off My Operating Table, and visit ifixhearts.com. Take a closer look of a future filled with vitality, clarity, and joy. I'm Kris Miller, and this is Money 911, where your legacy starts with your life. There's so much to learn about healthy money. I hope today's discussion brings you one step closer to securing and protecting your future. So you can get started on the right foot, go to meetwithkrismiller.com and schedule your free financial fitness strategy session. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe to Money 911 so you don't miss our next episode, which includes health, wealth, and peace of mind.